All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there with us as we got the meeting started and up to speed. Welcome to our June meeting. A couple of announcements for the association before I hand it off to Steve to introduce our speaker for today. The first announcement, I hope everybody saw that the Structural
Unknown
Engineers
participant
Association
is
of
now
San
joining.
Diego did issue a um, call to action, which was in response to the SEAOC and NCSEA calls to action, really in response to some of the really important issues that are being highlighted by national protests right now going on regarding police violence and regarding systemic racism in the country. We know that structural engineering is a little ancillary to some of those issues, but as an association in our community, we feel like it's important
Unknown
to
participant
be
is now
a
joining.
participant in that conversation. So please read that and please let us know if you have any feedback. Our first goal, first steps there are going to be really trying to engage with our membership and sister organizations. To that end, we've asked our SE3 committee to be following up in the near future. I think you should be expecting an email in the coming weeks regarding some next steps that SEAOSD wants to take on that front. Second announcement is wanted to really applaud our association for some excellent Excellence in Engineering Awards that were submitted. We had 8 submissions this year, which was fantastic for our association. We're going to be announcing the winners of our Excellence in Engineering Awards at our July meeting. That's a little bit of a change for us also. Typically, June is our Excellence in Engineering Awards dinner gala. And of course, due to the COVID situation, we're changing things up a little bit here. So we're going to be hosting another lunch meeting in July. That's going to include our Excellence in Engineering Award winners, some presentations on those who won, and then also some reports from our committees and appreciations of our committees for all the service they've done for our membership this year. So please mark your calendars. That's going to be coming up July 21st. And we'll be sending out an announcement here shortly after this meeting. One thing I really wanted to applaud that the awards committee did this year is that they changed the People's Choice Awards to include basically anybody in the industry. And I thought that was such a cool tweak because it essentially incentivized a lot of folks who were up for awards to be sending it out to architects and contractors and owners and really raising the profile of the San Diego um, Excellence in Engineering Awards for everybody, and not kind of keeping that insulated to just our association. So big round of applause to that small tweak. And also thank you to those who have participated in the judging panel. I know that we've had a number of excellence awards and merit awards to be handing out next month. So I'm really excited for that. To that effect, we do need a San Diego representative to participate at the state level Excellence in Engineering Awards judging. So if you're interested in that, please contact either Heather Kaya or Laith to pass on your name to our state judging panel. Calendar going forward, as we mentioned, we'll have one last meeting for the year in July. Our August will be an August break, so we won't have a meeting in August, and we'll be restarting our membership meetings in September. As you guys have hopefully all seen, our membership renewals have been issued. And so it would be much appreciated if you're able to go ahead and get your membership renewed earlier than later, especially with the whole COVID crisis and economic uncertainty. We're doing our best to make sure that we're responsibly budgeting for the association for next year. Our main priority is wanting to keep our programs and member benefits up to speed. And so the more that we're able to kind of understand where people are at in terms of their commitments and re-registration for their memberships, the better we're able to budget for next year. So please stay attentive to that. To that effect, also wanted to remind our sponsors that sponsorships are still available. And especially with some of our new format here on the webinars, frankly, we're getting a lot of attention and participation here. So if you're interested in being a sponsor, even for one of our webinars, it'd be much appreciated. That would include, basically a short advertisement, and you're going to get a lot of the structural engineers' attention here in the San Diego community. As everybody is aware, our annual golf tournament for this year was canceled, but we have started planning for next year. Tentatively, we've scheduled that for May 3rd of 2021, and fingers crossed that's all going to go smoothly. And the last thing I wanted to announce was our election results for our new board. Wanted to applaud everybody who put their name out there and was willing to serve the organization. This year, our two new directors who have been voted in are Matt Wexler with MHP and Garrett Mifsud with KPFF. Congratulations, guys. We're looking forward to working with you. Bo Jacquis are going to be our incoming vice president, and he'll be on a 3-year term, moving from vice president to past president. And lastly, we have Harsha Prasad, who's going to be coming in as our new treasurer. So thank you, everybody, for voting. And that's going to be our incoming board. Folks who are going to be staying on the board, Steve Spence, who's going to be moving from the vice president role into our president role starting in July. And I'll be moving from president to past president for 1 more year. Steve and I will be your delegates to our SEAOC board. So we'll be doing double duty here on our local board and then also serving on the state board. And then continuing directors, we've got John Deck and Aaron Taylor, who are halfway through their terms as directors and will be continuing on next year. So that will be your SEAOSD board. Outgoing board members, Chad Kloss is going to be retiring out of the treasurer position. Aaron Pebley is going to be retiring out of a director position. Dr. Jose Restrepo is going to be retiring also from a director position. And Stephen Crook will be finishing up his leadership duties and retiring from the past president position. So a big round of applause for all those folks who have put in a lot of effort to make sure that SEAOSD is strong. And like we said, really concentrating on providing those benefits to our local members. So thank you so much for your guys' service. It's been an honor being on the board with you. With that, I'll hand it back to Steve to introduce our speaker for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Before I introduce our speaker, a little bit of housekeeping. Any and all questions, go ahead and put it in the conversation, the chat window here, and I will forward it on to Dr. Uang at the end of the presentation. With that being said, our speaker today is Dr. Chia-Ming Uang. He's a professor of structural engineering at the University of California, San Diego. His research is on seismic analysis, large-scale testing, and design of steel structures. His work has also supported the pre-qualification of several moment connections in the AISC 358 standard. Uang received the AISC Special Achievement Award in 2007, the T.R. Higgins Lectureship Award in 2015, and the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. So without any further ado, Dr. Uang, go ahead and start sharing your screen.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for inviting me to give you the presentation today. When I was approached by Sam and Jennifer, can you see my screen?
No, not yet. If you can go ahead and share your screen, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, when I was approached by Jennifer and Sam early this year before COVID-ID, I was asked to give a short course, 3 to 4 hours, to talk about AISC 358. My first response to them is, why do you need to have such a long lecture to talk about 358? Okay, but after this COVID crisis, and finally that your organization decided to offer a webinar. So in today's presentation, that I would like to share an overview of what I understand of this document with you. Okay. The background of this document all started from the North earthquake. We know that in the old days, we use this kind of connection, the bolted web, weighted flange that was codified in 1988 UBC. And we know the problem that we saw in the North earthquake, that because of that event, that there was 5-6 years research done by SET joint venture that we old-timers are very aware of. The problem is pretty widespread. Okay, it's a design issue, welding issue, detailing issue, everything, you know, that is very hard to pinpoint who is responsible for the brittle fracture that we observe from the from this earthquake. So in that joint venture, there are many issues that have been addressed. And as a result of that 5 years research, then we have a new material, A992 steel. We have the welding code AISC 1.8 to address seismic issues, not to mention the detailing issue and design issues that you, the design engineers, have to deal with all the time. So after SAG that we, then we have the AISC. During that transition, during that period, we also transitioned from UBC to IBC, AISC 7. And other than using UBC, we also have AISC 341 for seismic design of steel structures. And for that 2005 edition, that for the spatial moment frame design, the moment connections, there's a performance criteria described there. You want to make sure the connection that you use will have a capacity, deformation capacity up to 4% story drift angle, while the strength cannot degrade below 80% of the beam plastic moment at the face of the column. 341 then continue to say that you, the engineer, has two options. You either ask your client to give you money to do testing to justify your connection, or you use AISC 358 for the connections that are qualified there. This 358, okay, is developed by a panel we call the CPRP. The current chair is Professor Michael Engelhardt, Vice Chair Brent Manning from Chef Steel. And if you have any question or whatever, you can contact them, or Margaret, who is the Secretary of CPRP now. So their job is to develop this document and to qualify connections for this standard. During the SEC era, quite a number of connections have been investigated. Here, I just provide a very brief summary. You can see this quadrant, okay, the unreinforced connection. That's how they started immediately after North earthquake. Can we tweak the existing UBC connection by changing the detail or by using better electrode? Can we do a better job? So there's a so-called unreinforced. They try different kind of thing. And they also tried the reinforced. For example, the cover plated that was tried in the early on, while they try to figure out the solution that we call the reinforced connection. Then we realize strengthening it may not be the only way. So we also try the reduced beam section, and there are other connections, other type of connections. So they digest and then go to the next page. There are more. Okay, the bolted connection, there are several connections. They were investigated during the SEC research. Let me go back to the previous slide. CPRP, after year 2000, they have the FEMA document from this SEC joint venture. Then they start to screen to see what connections are qualified that they feel comfortable for inclusion in 358. Taking this reduced beam section, for example. Original idea is a straight cut, originally from Belgium, that was right before 20 years before Northridge. And then there in Taiwan, some engineer patent that one, make that a taper. And in the US, we kind of Americanize that dog bone as we use now. That was incorporated in the 2005, the first edition of 358. And here, that is like the pre-notated type, but with a good amount of modifications that was incorporated in 2008. And I will talk a bit more about that in a moment. And there's a French plate that, again, some connections have been incorporated. This is out, cover plate is out. The hunch is not included in the 358. And similar for the bodied one, okay, this was incorporated in 2005. I will mention more later on. Okay, 2008, 2016, you see, this one take a long time for the CPRP to digest for inclusion in the 358. And this one probably will not show up. The history, first edition, 2005. Supplement 1, 2008. At that time, there were only 2 connection pre-qualified. Okay, after they filtered the connections from the SEC report. 2, then they added 3 years later. Then came the 2010 edition. It was 5, then supplement 1, 1 more, and the supplement 2, another 1. So we have 7 now. The 2016 edition, the one that you use now, 2 added with 9. Supplement 1, another 1 in. And end of July, you should see this. And I will also touch upon briefly. This is what we have. CPRP continue to work on the 2002 edition. So they will have a few more, some more connection to come. That is the history of 358. So this is the supplement 1 that you have now in 2018. So there are 14 chapters. Some general requirement, design, wording or boarding requirement. Here are the pre-qualified connection. We have a total of 10 so far. 10 so far. Okay, I will talk about them in a moment. I say, why do you need 3 or 4 hours to have me to talk about 358? Because I think if you have a general idea of this document, you should be able to figure out whatever connection that you want to try. So my presentation today is to provide some general picture of this document. I will take one particular chapter, RBS, that we probably all of us are familiar with. I will use that one as an example. This is the outline of that chapter. Every connection chapter is outlined in a similar manner. The first 2 is preamble, tells you, oh, what is this? Where is the structure fields you wanted to yield? So that is the preamble. Okay, some general description of how does it look like. Then I group this one as a part 1 is a qualification limits. Okay, the beam current limitation, I will talk about that. So that is true for every connection. You always see the limit. You want to see whether that connection will be good for you. So you look at that one. Then part 2, I group these. Wear limitation, the connection limitations, the RBS cut, those are related to detailing or the weld requirements, CJP, or what do you do with steel backing, those kind of things. So those are the detailing issue. The design part, this is the design part, step-by-step design part. I lump this into here because here, like a strong column weak beam, those kind of things, I lump that into here. So this is the design part. So every chapter is outlined this way. If you are familiar with the chapter 5, you want to look at the other connection like OFW, you go there. Okay, probably it's not hard. It's not hard. Now, let me first give you, other than talking about one connection at a time, I will give you an overview of what do you have. Okay, some engineer told me saying, oh, I need to know more about 358 because my design office only use RBS. And there are so many other connections in this big document, I really don't know, I need your help. So here I try to summarize for you. Okay, easy to understand figure. The first one is the beam depth. Beam size is very important for the moment connection performance. The reason why we have weather fracture, CJP weather fracture in the Northridge earthquake is because beam try to press hinge, try to develop plastic moment. It put a tremendous amount of load to the CJP weld. So the weld force demand is coming from beam. That's the reason why beam size is very important. And there's another thing that many of us know. There is a beam size effect. That means if I use small beam to do testing to qualify connection, I cannot generalize that to deeper beam. That is one lesson we learned from the Northridge earthquake. In the old days, we test W18 beam, then engineers use that for W36. Then there's a problem. It's a problem. That's the reason why we are so careful nowadays. Beam depth, that is the one. I draw one red line that use W36 as a reference line. 36, okay, it's a reference, just for reference only. You can see most of the connection, okay, can comparable to that W36. The first one is a chapter 5. Actually, I arranged that in chapter by chapter. Chapter 5, chapter 6 is extended end plate body connection. And there are four bolt version, stiffened version, unstiffened version. E means extended, okay, extended end plate. And the 8 bolt extended end plate. So this I group that in one. That is the next chapter. And the bolt flange, Wolf W, Kaiser body bracket, XL, side plate. Okay, there's a field weighted version, and recently weighted version. Recently, they're pushing for bolted version. So I put 2, and Simpson strong tie, one there. Okay, there you can see that for smaller beam, you can see that double T, this one, and then the slotted web is this one. Okay, so you have a bigger picture. Some what can be used for the big size, what can be used for small size. But this one, you say, oh, look at this one. This stands out. Actually, this can go to 55 inches in depth. You say, oh, there's no such a rolled shape. Yes, that is mainly for build-up. I will talk more about that. So beam weight is also important. Beam weight. The heavier the beam, the larger the size, the heavier the beam will be. You look at this bolted end the plate. It's built up. It's for metal building. You can see it's very, very light. So even though you see the 55 inches deep, actually it's very, very light member. So this is very different animal. Unless you are in metal building industry, usually you don't see this connection. So now look at the beam weight. RBS, I use RBS, the well-known one, as a reference. Can go to 300 pounds. 300 pounds. Okay, they are pretty light. So in case you want to use heavy beam, probably they may not help you too much. So you may have to resort to some proprietary connection. Side plate can go beyond what the 300 pound can do. So you can see that they provide much heavier beam for you. And the other one is the slotted web. It's also at the heavy side. Those are very light duty one. Okay, here they are not available because they're tabulated somehow. So it's not unlike the other one, they put a number. That's the reason why that implicitly is limited by some other means. For example, in the tables, in tables. Another limit is the beam flange thickness. Just imagine you have a roll shape, the flange width is 12 inches, and the beam flange is pulling your CJP weld. So of course, the amount of force that the beam flange is pulling that CJP weld is also a function of thickness. So thickness also plays an important role. Look at RPS, 1 3/4 inch. So you get the feeling, huh? 1 3/4 inch, other are thin. And this is for metal building. You see, it's very thin. Usually it's build-up member, so it's pretty thin. Okay, so that is regarding the beam flange thickness, and sometimes there's no limit for some connections. So you, the designer, you like to see, you like the previous slide, you like to be as large as possible. So you can use a larger beam. So maximum, we always say maximum depth or maximum flange thickness. Now there's another one, it's not the maximum, it's called the minimum. For each connection, it also tells you, this is the one. You cannot go below this, right? For the beam depth, you cannot go beyond that. But for this ratio, you cannot go below this. Why? Just imagine you have a beam. You have a beam. If you develop press hinge at both ends, you draw the moment diagram. There's a reverse curvature, right? So the slope of the moment diagram is shear. If that beam is shorter, while you develop press moment at both ends, of course, that the slope is larger. That means shear is larger. So that means the connection will see larger shear force. What does it mean to you as a designer? If I, in the laboratory, I test a mobile connection for a span of 30 feet, I qualify the connection. You should not use that blindly for your structure with 20 feet span because the connection will see a much larger shear. That's the reason why there's a limit. Okay, this is a clear span, LC clear span with respect to the beam depth. Again, use the RPS as a reference line around 7. Okay, so you see that one. So in this case, probably the lower the better, right? Because I say minimum. So the higher, that means your span relatively cannot be too short. So the smaller, the better. Here, I want to bring to your attention, side plate is the lowest, but their definition is different from this one. So you need to be very, very careful. The way they define the span is hinge to hinge, press hinge to press hinge. So in effectively, their value should be comparable to this one. Okay, it's case by case, but here I want to bring to you that the only one use LH, not LC. And now you understand why there's such requirement. Now let's touch upon briefly of the design procedure that all you are very familiar with. Okay, so I want to go over this quickly. And I say you don't need me to give you 3 or 4 hours of a short course to talk about how to design every connection. The concept is the same for every connection. It's the same. Okay, this is the frame. We want to define press hinges. And I will talk about the location of the press hinge later on. You know the press hinge. Of course, you follow AISC 7, you have the seismic load combination with overstrength because we're doing the capacity design. So I take one beam out. This is one beam out. Once you know the press hinge, then we try to find out what is the maximum, probable maximum moment. We want to find out what it is. You know how to do that for RBS. We find out this, of course, then for the seismic moment, this is a straight line. It's a straight line. Then I extrapolate the moment to the column. That becomes a demand for me to check strong column quick beam, panel zone, and the requirement for continuity plate. So I just extrapolate. This is the EMH per AISC 7. This concept is so simple. So all you need to know is where's the hinge? for the connection you are using and how to compute these. That's it. Then everything else stays the same. It's the same design philosophy. How come I cannot move? Okay, RBS, right? RBS. Half of the beam span, center line. You all know this. Inflection point, we assume it beam span. So press hinge, 350 SS is in the middle of this RBS. So I compute this. Of course, here I have a reduced section. I use ZRBS. And here for A992 steer 1.15. Okay, then you extrapolate to the moment there. You extrapolate for the Penozone shear check and the continuity plate check. You extrapolate to there for the strong column with beam check. This is seismic moment. You just add that to the gravity load component, which is not hard at all. RBS. Okay, this is a testing we did. You can see that is a press hinge, which is reasonable. Side plate. Okay, this one side plate testing done at the UCSD. Okay, you can see same thing. But in the document 358, in that particular chapter, it tells you where's the press hinge. It's here. It's described in that chapter. So use that one, then you compute at the moment. Of course, here you don't use RBS because side plate beam does not use RBS. So you use the complete ZX of the beam. Then you do extrapolation. It's the same thing, right? So that is you can see the hinge is around there, which is compatible to what is proposed by side plate and used in their design. Okay, so good. Let's go over one connection at a time. Okay, one at a time. Chapter 5 RBS, the first one introduced. One of the first two connection pre-qualified. This is the one that you use quite often. Recently, there's a proposal for 22 edition based on some testing at the Virginia Tech. The first ballot has been passed, I believe, by the CPRP. The proposal is to extend the beam depth to 44 inches. The weight will go to 400 pounds. And the thickness of the flange is also increased. Just be aware of that. That is likely to be incorporated in the 22 edition. That is chapter 5 on RBS. Chapter 6 is extended end plate connection. As I mentioned, it's mainly used for build-up members, and the metal building industry use that a lot. This is the 4-bolt, but it is stiffened, and this is a bolt. So those are pre-qualified. Recent effort at the Virginia Tech also tried to develop 12-bolt, but not successful. So they're still trying to figure out how to make that work. So they try to have that included in the supplement 2 to be released this year, but they encounter some difficulty. So this one has not been successful. And this is the type of connection. Okay, I happen to have some experience with one of the shaking table testing of the metal building that I tested about almost 10 years ago. They use this kind of a connection for IMF in high seismic regions. Go to next chapter. It's bolted flange plate. As I mentioned to you, from the design point of view, the first question you want to ask is, where is the press hinge? It is here. This is the first press hinge. You see the first bolt, this S of H. That is the distance to the hinge. So here, then we compute the pressing moment, then we extrapolate. Then the design procedure per 341 remains the same. Okay, this is again, this is UCSD testing. You can see the bolted connection. Note that the bolts here are in shear to transmit the beam tension force or compression force through this welded plate to the column. So these bolts are in shear. Whenever bolts are in shear, that you should expect noise, pretty loud noise, okay, which is pretty typical. This is the first connection test I did with the bolted connection that has a lot of noise because they are pretension bolts and they will slip. I don't see too many applications of a bolted French plate connection. This is one that I'm aware of. Somebody can provide a photo to me. This may be, it seems to be on UCSD campus. Okay, but other than that, I have not seen this type of construction. Go to next one. Next one is Wolf W. It's more commonly used. This one is is closer to the pre-Northridge. But the one problem with the pre-Northridge is, among many issues, is the web is bolted. So for the Wolf W, of course, with all the improvement, remove steel backing and those kind of things, and there's an enlarged this kind of shear tab, and that needs to be welded. And the beam web also needs to be CJP welded. In addition to that, there's a special enlarged wear access hole that is in D1.8. That wear access hole needs to be used. And there's a special reason, okay, to have this wear access hole. Because making this longer, one problem with the pre-Northridge is we've put a lot of bolt to resist shear. But in reality, bolt web is not very effective. Most of the shear eventually still transfer to the top flange and the bottom flange. Can you imagine? You have the shear, beam shear transfer through here. It will have secondary bending effect that will further stress the welded joint, the CJP weld there. So making this as longer to some extent will relieve that the secondary bending stress due to that shear. Of course, we also use CJP, so we really want the shear tab to participate in lessen the force demand to the top and the bottom flanges. And this is the testing that we did, okay, for that the transit center for in this case it's a build-up. It's a special case, but it's a Wolf W. So you can see where's the press hinge. This is the point I want to make. Where's the press hinge? Press hinge is here. But the code assumes it is here. When we voted for this chapter, I was the only one who opposed that the press hinge be here, be at the face of column. It should be here, right? But I was the only one who said we should not do that. But my opinion was overruled. Because we do this one, and if you remember the moment diagram, that's the reason why that the CPI is equal to 1.4. The commentary says the reason why we have 1.4 is because the beam flange strain hardened a lot. It's not true. It's because we extrapolate the moment. We assume the press hinge is here, not here. That's the reason why the moment is so high. And we use CPR equal to 1.4. That is Wolf W. Okay, this is one application, Wolf W, from one company in Pasadena. Wolf W. This is another one from one of my former students who showed me this photo. This for bigger building. This is for one story for a police station. So you can see that. Okay, it remains to be welded. Keep in mind that the y-axis hole is very, very important. Y-axis hole. Since I'm talking about the beam shear, so let me jump to the last chapter because it's relevant to what I just described to the WFW. So let me jump to the last chapter, the slotted web that was introduced 2018. Slotted web, it sounds a little bit crazy. We slot the web there, we slot the web there, slot web there. And the press hinge is assumed to be here. So you can see that one. The idea is if you slot there, the shear cannot go to the flange because there's a gap, kind of isolate the flange from the web, so shear has to be transmitted this way. Okay, such that the CJP will not see the secondary bending stress. That is idea, but the design procedure is the same. This is a press hinge location, then we do extrapolation. This is a photo I took last year. I happened to see some construction. You see the slotted web one here. I also noticed that in the yard, the beam to be erected, I noticed that when it is shipped to the site, this is not completely slotted. I suspect that is due to the transportation and the handling. Otherwise, it will close, the gap will close. I suspect once they welded that one, then they frame cut this portion to create this. Okay, this is a little, the edge is a little rough, but it's okay. Yeah, I think it's not as critical as RBS. The smoothness is very important. Chapter 9, Kaiser bolted bracket. Okay, there's a weighted version and there's a bolted version. I don't see a real construction in San Diego. The press hinge is assumed to be here. Assumed to be here in design. I have 2 experiences with the Kaiser bolted bracket in the lab. This was the one when I was working with a technical engineer on the retrofit of a Caltrans district office in Auckland. So this is one of the options they contemplated. Eventually, they did not use it. This is good for retrofit. You just imagine, of course, you have to drill a hole to the flange, to the column, to the flange of the beams and the column, but no field welding in existing building. Fire hazard is a concern, right? So this is attractive from some point of view, and this is the detail. You can see that the connection detail. And another project I was involved was for a police station, again in the Bay Area. They also used the bolted bracket. Go to chapter 10. Is Connex Tech, the connection. This one. Okay, you can see the kind of a sleeve, right, under the beam with some attachment at the end, can drop into it and then by bolting it. This is the idea. This connection compared to the other one, there are 2 aspects I can think of. First of all, it's biaxial. Most of the connection or most of the SMF design that you design are 2D frame, not 3D, but this is a true 3D frame. Second one is a HSS, 16-inch HSS, and the concrete can be filled to further increase the stiffness and the strength of the connection. So this is the one. I happened to see one building construction last year near the junction of 163 and 52. Yeah, I don't know who's the designer. I happened to see it. So with the permission, I got in and take a few photos. Yeah, this is how the connection look like. That was introduced in 2011. Chapter 11 is side plate connection. It was introduced relatively late, 6 years ago. But the side plate connection might be the first proprietary connection. I started doing testing for the founder, David Houghton, in December 1994. I still remember. It was a very cold day. We were doing testing for them. Ever since, they have been doing many tests, most of them at the UCSD, to meet the need for different applications from your side, from the designer side. This is the field-weighted version. That's how it started, is weighted version. And then a few years ago, they started the field-devoted version. So you see here. Of all the connections I tested for side plate, the beams are always roll shape or build up. Their connections are also qualified for HSS, okay, which were tested elsewhere, not at the UCSD. They also, over the past 20 years, they have also conducted several biaxial moment connections at the UCSD. They started out with this dual strong axis connection, with the W shape and the structure T cruciform, like this one. This is the biaxial connection. They have also pre-qualified that one. And in the supplement 2, likely to be released end of next month, they also pre-qualify the HSS or build-up box columns. This is the box column, build-up box column testing that we did for them about 2 or 3 years ago. So that is also another addition to this one. In supplement 2, okay, just to keep you updated, there are many choices you can have. Another one they introduced is so-called configuration C. Configuration, you see the angle is pointing down, now it's pointing this way. My understanding is mainly for hospital applications. So those are the new features to be added. Let's go to chapter 12, Simpson strong tie, which is also a latecomer, 2016. That was when it was first introduced. This connection is interesting. It's a PR connection, not the FR, free strand connection. It's a PR connection. Okay, that's one thing to be noted. The idea, most of the connections, we rely on beam hinging. That means after the earthquake, the beam will be damaged in a nice way, though, so-called a nice way, even though luckily we don't want a brittle fracture, okay, but that's what we expect to see. For this connection, they want the beam to remain elastic, and then they put the fuse. It's a structure T there. Can you imagine that? This one is a fuse. They want that to yield. And there's a buccal restraint plate on top of it. This is a better view. They want this just like the cancel coupon. They want it to yield in tension and the compression. Do you see that plate in orange color? And the middle portion that you don't see is the narrow portion that will yield, but on the compression it will buckle. So just like the BRP, they put a plate to prevent it from buckling. That is the basic idea of this, the strong frame connection. Their application seems to be more for residential, 1-story, 2, 3-story, for light framing construction, it appears. That is the original intent of their connection.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Okay, so this one in supplement 2, that they have expanded the beam and the column sizes. Now they are targeting for for more heavy-duty members, and the ear length can be larger. They also provide some option other than using the T. They use that so-called end plate option that will be introduced in the supplement number 2. Here, there's another connection, just it's not included in 358 yet, but it's likely to be included in the 22 edition. But engineers still can use it through the certification by IAPMO. Okay, I understand that some buildings have already used this connection. It's done by Dr. Paul Richards. It's called the DuraFuse. Again, the idea is very similar to the strong type, the Simpsons connection. The beam is to be not to be damaged. Instead, there's a plate. You can see the top plate. It's really the bottom plate. It's called the fuse plate. This is the bottom flange. It's a fuse plate. You can see that one. That the beam flange force has to be transmitted to here through this cross section. So the idea is to let this portion to yield in shear while keeping the beam elastic. So that is the idea of this connection. This is the testing at the UCSD, okay, a year or 2 ago. And you can see this is the yielding pattern. Okay, this looking up to the bottom portion of that one. This is one real application. 13, double T, that is the interesting one, is like this one. Okay, again, body connection. Design, we assume price range. Then we go from there to design this. You look at the structure T, this is in shear, the bolts are in tension. Both are in tension, in shear. You can imagine this pry action. What is common of body connection? Lots of check, because there's so many limit states. Pry action, lots of checks. Okay, that's one observation I made. Whenever you're dealing with the body connection, so many things you need to check. To summarize, to conclude my presentation, okay, now I included supplement 2 and DuraFuse. So you see that you have a wealth of connections that you can choose from in terms of beam depth and in terms of beam weight. Okay, proprietary versus non-proprietary. You can see the ones showing red are proprietary. Okay, and this connection, that the pattern has expired. So in the 2022 edition, that they will be renamed. For example, it will not be called the Kaiser body bracket. It may be called the cast body bracket, and those proprietary information will be removed. But there are other proprietary connections that provide you with many options to meet the need that you need. Here, you also have the option of doing the welded or bolted. There are many are bolted. The red one are welded, right? RBS, OFW, slotted web, side plate can be welded, can be bolted, and there are different kind of options. So that here is another consideration. Uniaxial, biaxial, most of them are uniaxial, unless you do cruciform column or those kind of things, then you can do biaxial. But these proprietary connections, this is going to be biaxial. And the side plate also offers biaxial version of the moment connection. Okay, with this, I will end my presentation, and I will share this PowerPoint file to you upon your request. Okay, I will stop here. If you have any question, please feel free to let me know. Okay, let me make the last comment. I'm a researcher. Okay, so I'm on the other side, not like you, the end user. So I share with you what I know about the 358 and the test photos and some photos I collected when I happen to see some buildings that I go in and take photos. If you have some interesting photos, please share with me because you are the users. I really don't know what kind of connection you are using. Okay, with this, I will stop here and